Hello. Welcome back, everybody. What's going on? Can you hear me? No.
I can't hear you.
Oh,
Are
you
we?
can't hear me there.
No,
That's right.
but am I not supposed to in
No,
this headset?
you're not supposed to. Yeah. Do
So
you
we
want to
switched
swap?
headsets.
Do you want to swap
No,
so that you
I'm
can hear
good.
me?
Nope,
If not, you might have to do one of these where
nope.
a little peaky.
I'm good.
So,
I'm
what's up,
good.
Liam?
I'm here.
What's
I'm
up,
here.
guys? Did you have a good time last round?
I had an amazing time last round.
Good.
I'm not gonna lie. I love being here at SSG. I love this charity event. A lot of great players out there, and I love getting to broadcast with the two of you.
Thank you.
I
Gabe
am
is
not gonna lie.
quite the professional.
Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. I came down. I was watching the first round off on the side behind the camera. You all, on stream couldn't see me there, and I was like, these guys are good.
Oh, come on.
Your chemistry, everything else. So like, I'm just excited to get to be in the booth with you.
Well, we're excited to be here with you. There's a reason why we wanted you to be here, and I've admired your commentary for quite a long time. I love your ability to not only be analytical, but also like really cater to the Disney lovers and the knowing all that kind of stuff. So you were able to tread on both sides of the fence, and I really admire that about your commentary. So it's a pleasure to be here with you, and yeah, I hope you're having a good time here with us.
I'm having an amazing time,
Awesome.
and the one thing I should say too, it's always a great day when you get to watch top tier Lorcana,
of course,
being played.
Absolutely, and we keep bringing the spice here, guys, as we run into another green steel matchup, but this time against a sapphire steel deck. Mike Arcello, both these guys, very well known here down in South Florida. Kylie, is the manager rather of Southside Gaming, and Mike, a very avid sapphire steel player. He's been playing it since I've met him. So this is his time now. We're living in his world, if you will.
Yeah, my time is here.
Yeah, I did it first. Now everybody's playing blue steel, but yeah, we see the players just figuring out who's going to be starting us off here, and it should be a really good match. Both these players very experienced, very good players, and I'm excited to see. What do you think? Who do you think has the edge here when it comes to sapphire steel versus emerald steel?
Oh geez, I don't know. I think I'm going to put this at a toss up because here's what I think.
Sure.
I think that Sapphire Steel is one of the top two decks in the meta. I mean,
sure.
I think Ruby Sapphire is probably the best one, but
Sure.
one of the top two decks and very very strong. Of course, I don't know if we're seeing the item variant here,
Right,
or the mid range aggro variant,
Yeah.
and that makes a huge difference. But I don't think you bring green steel into this event if you're not planning on running into this matchup.
Sure.
And so Kylie, I'm sure, has thought this through, and I think it's probably 50-50 based on, and it's not just deck choice. It's knowing these players, it's knowing their knowledge of the meta,
Of course.
and how they're gonna, adjust going into kind of this, what they expect to see.
Absolutely.
But then also, well, yeah, I'm gonna. But if I had to give the edge to somebody, I'm actually gonna give it to Green Steel.
Okay, I like that. Okay.
If I had to,
I would teeter in the opposite direction. I think Green Steel is a very high rolly deck. If they're able to, put all the pieces together, shift in, do the whole, all the tricks. I think it could be kind of difficult if he's able to discard Mike's hand at a rate that he's not able to stabilize. However, Mike having access to things like Bell into Storm Rage on, I think it's going to be quite problematic for Diablo if he's not able to get it into the Cove in time. I could see that kind of being a little bit of a hurdle for Kylie he's going to have to overcome. But I'm sure, like you said, he knows that. He's definitely chosen this deck for a reason. I think there's a lot of reason to play Green Steel right now. I know a lot of people are choosing to go with the Sapphire decks, but I think that there's definitely some tricks to be had from the Emerald Steel side.
I agree with you. I think your Bell play is right on point. Like if Blue Steel hitting that turn one Bell or turn two, then into Storm Rage on, like that could turn the whole match.
Sure.
And for sure, like if you're mulliganing for if you see 14 cards or 13 cards, your chances of hitting a 1 of 4 that you need are like 70 something percent. I forget what it is, like 72% or something crazy.
Sure.
So like the odds of them having that are pretty high, but it does hinge on that, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I think
it definitely does. And we see a Hiram there, and he's debating on what he wants to do with it. But if that Hiram does get going, it can also be pretty difficult for Green Steel to manage their discard, right? Like we want to be able to get that hand depleted as fast as possible, since truthfully, Green Steel's threats aren't that big. We have pretty small threats. It's just a matter of kind of pulling away the resources from your opponent so they're not able to deal with your threats. And Hiram does make that quite difficult, obviously, because he just keeps on churning cards.
That's true.
So we'll see. I mean, it
Eating
depends on.
popsicles.
Yeah, that's what he does. He's a notorious popsicle eater. But we'll see how it plays out. It all depends on kind of, I think like you said, it could go kind of either way here, but it depends on how we start off here. So let's see.
I will admit, I'm basing this a little bit on like recent experience. And there we go. The Diablo in turn 1, setting up that shift potentially, but getting a look at the hand.
Absolutely.
And do we see I can't see those.
I think
two
it's
cards.
a Zeus, and the bottom one is a total mystery. It's a wild card.
Either way, we don't have an item anyway. So even if we did have the bell, we're hoping to draw into that. But when I recently did the Hunter Burton tournament, and in that we had Zan Syed, you had Aaron Rubin go in with blue steel. Zan Syed, the person who I'm not sure if he originated the item build, but definitely made it famous and one of the best players of that
definitely
build.
Popularized that style, I would say. Yeah.
And out of the top cut, 4 green steel decks in the top cut of that tournament, in the top 8. And so I saw green steel kind of manhandle blue steel a little bit, which is probably my recency bias.
Yeah, no, for sure. And but, you have every right to think so. I mean, I definitely can see a world where, Emerald Steel just able to just take over the game. But when I think about Storm Rage on, I'm just thinking, how am I going to protect this Diablo?
Yeah,
How am I going to keep this Diablo alive? But Kylie is playing, very traditional old school green steel with, hidden coves and things like that. And he actually showed me a funny card that I hope we get to see this game. I'm not going to spoil the surprise here, but Kylie running a copy of a card that you all may remember very well. Let's just say that. So
interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It makes an appearance. You gotta punch me when it happens.
I'll let you know. You'll know. Trust me.
So Diablo can be down to turn 1, getting a look at Mike's hand, and then Kylie knowing he's got a target there for that beautiful D23 Ursula coming down on turn 2. Yeah. Kylie picking that Zeus.
He's got to bling everything out. This is Kylie. If it's not foil, it's not going in the deck. That's the way Kylie operates. So we're going to see a lot of shine coming from his side of the board.
Speaking of shiny, at Tamatoa there going into Mike's Inkwell to play a Smee on turn 2.
Yep. And Kylie just choosing not to, not to quest obviously with the Diablo since the hook is looming. Not able to get his shift line off, so I'm sure he's a little disappointed about that. But we have Pete here who will stop any actions. So if we're gonna, attempt to rage on or storm or anything like, or excuse me, raging fire. I always get them confused because they're both raging fire and raging storm.
That's right. I do the same thing.
They're both raging cards. But we see, we continue. We're both playing Pete's back and forth here, and first to get on the board is Mike as he sends that Smee sideways, and no damage thanks to the captain. So very nice effect here. And now we pass it over to Kylie, who will have an opportunity to maybe trade in this Pete. What do you think? I'm thinking maybe the 1 lore for the 2 lore is a fair trade.
I think so too. Pete has obviously done his job, except, one of the things that makes Floodborne, to step back a minute, one of the things in this game that makes Floodborne really good, or even better than what their card does, is when they have a really good shift target that's played. And so when anybody sees a Floodborne version of a card that they run come out in their colors, it's very, very exciting. In this set, we got Space Pirate Pete, which is available to shift for 4. And so normally, I think last set, you play this Pete, it does its job. Now he's just a 3/3 sitting in the board with 1 lore. You're happy to trade it into a Smee.
Right.
But now it represents a nice target for that Space Pirate if Kylie has it in hand, or if it's something that he wants to save.
For sure. That's something I definitely did not consider. I'm forgetting that we do have options for Pete now. I'm just so used to the blue decks that just kind of play him and then send him on his way.
Get rid of him. Yeah, I can't bounce him. He's
that's it. He's done his job, like you said earlier. But yeah, definitely. So definitely some opportunity here for bigger Pete to come down and cause some trouble here, and not allowing your opponent to sing songs could be relevant here. Since that's Pete most likely next turn will be singing a little something. So let's see how Kylie decides to approach this as he plays a Prince John. Whether or not he's able to sing some sudden chills here will be interesting to see, but Prince John will keep his hand nice and full, but he doesn't have it. Just sends it right back over to Mike. So I'm sure Mike is taking a breath of relief on that one for sure.
Yeah, so it is an interesting choice. Definitely chose to protect that Pete there. Leave that up. I think that's a trade that a lot of people would be happy to make.
Right.
But again, it does protect that shift line. And not only does it protect that shift line, but if you draw into a card like Along Came Zeus or a more expensive song, now you can shift on top of that Pete and sing it immediately. So it opens up several lines. Prince John is always a scary card to see established in the mid game when you're playing against any discard deck. I feel like it is expensive, and normally for a mid game card, it's 3 for a 1/2.
Sure.
And normally you have to take kind of a breather if you're given some space to play it and develop it.
Right.
But if you're given that space, getting him on the board is kind of nasty.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just going to say absolutely what you're saying is true. And Prince John in this matchup actually shines a little more because there's no Sisu threats, right? We don't have any way to really deal with him unless, he does eventually exert himself, which, I'm sure Kylie's going to do his best not to exert him at all unless he needs to. So Prince John, pretty much just a permanent addition to the board for the time being, which can be quite frustrating for the blue player for sure.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I recall, I think DLC Vegas seeing Zansead with like 30 cards in hand off of Diablos and Prince John's.
I do remember that. That was during our hashtag ban the bird phase, you know,
right.
And thankfully the bird's still around, but we have new things to complain about now. So we've moved on from the bird, and hopefully by next set we'll move on from the crab. But we'll see. I don't know how long that's going to be going. We'll see how that goes. But he does choose to exert the John here. We just spoke a little bit about that. I guess he just doesn't have any other way to sing this song that he wants to sing. So he's going to go ahead and use Prince John for the time being to get 2 damage out there and take care of that hook there.
Yeah, it's an interesting target. Definitely, I'm sure at this point, Kylie is sick of letting that Smee quest every turn for free, not getting that damage on him. So we'll clean that up. But also get a card, which I think might be one of the bigger benefits here. Of that, I'm guessing.
For sure. I think Kylie's definitely looking to dig for cards here. We haven't really seen him assemble any of his pieces here, right? We didn't get the Peach shift. We didn't get the Diablo shift. We really haven't discarded any cards yet. It's kind of feels like right now Kylie's stuck in a place where he's playing, operating in a way his deck doesn't really want to operate, right? He's being very fair at the moment. And I think we're in a world right now where fair is just not quite good enough in this game. When we're looking at the competitive decks, everybody's trying to do the most unfair thing possible. And right now, Kylie's kind of having, playing to play by the rules, if you will.
That's true.
So yeah, so we'll see if he was able to kind of get out of this. But right now, Mike just slowly climbing up here. Ooh. That's a big one.
Potentially very impactful play there.
Absolutely. Nine's a big number here, especially when the green steel decks are playing, all these 1-powered characters. It could be quite troublesome to get rid of that manner.
Yeah, it is interesting here. You point out Kylie not necessarily in his game plan. Mike not either. This item, if this is the item variant, we haven't seen any items yet. If it is the mid-range aggro variant, normally you'd like to see even then a Flavisham developed here turn 4, Popsicle, that kind of thing, keep it going. And so both players playing kind of an awkward game right now with not their ideal draw. And the McDuck Manor is an interesting play here as well, because normally I think the conventional wisdom would be that the blue steel deck is not necessarily the beatdown. And this McDuck Manor is also in there for the mirrors, but here it's used in more of a beatdown role. Mike managing to get a quarter of the way to victory, dropping down this location, which is going to require a response here before too long. And Kylie with just not much strength on the board.
Okay, so the namesake of the mansion, it comes out. He's Who's on My Lawn as Scrooge steps outside, and we do see him, not an addition we always see in this list, so very cool to see him there. And Kylie did play a sudden chill last turn that discarded a Hiram, so I guess he chose, I think it might have been his only card in hand actually, because he didn't have any items in play to take advantage of that Hiram, so it's got to be kind of unfortunate that he had to pitch it. But right now that Manor is going to keep ticking, and Morph is not quite going to do it unless he has something a little bigger to get into there. And we will go all the way up to 15. That is a big number here. Yeah, and that 5/5 Scrooge is going to be quite the problem here.
Yeah, a really fun card, Scrooge, to see worked in and popping into the meta. Just no real ability. It's a vanilla card, but well statted at 4.
Absolutely. We've been seeing Bianca's as well, making a lot of play. And I just think that a 5/5 stat at a turn on 4 ink is just, it's a big threat. Scrooge does have the benefit of questing for 2, but I think both options clearly being effective at just putting a big wall in play. And here's a little bit of information about the discard deck. If we're newer to the game and you didn't live through the last format of discard, pretty much you're just trying to make your opponent top deck, right? You're just trying to strip away their resources, make it hard for them. Although they may have the resources in their deck, if you're able to pull enough cards out of their hand, maybe they have to ink the wrong card, and it kind of just throws off their game plan. And in the meantime, you're just trying to set up, the machine, if you will, as much as possible, and then hopefully close out the game with some evasives or some 2 questing characters for sure. And yeah, so we're gonna get into game 2 now. So we will have Kylie on the play this time, and we will see if Kylie's able to have a little bit of a more high rolly start here. He really, like we mentioned, both players kind of playing not their optimal strategies, but Mike able to get that location in play, which is just such a powerhouse against this deck. So I'm sure Kylie's going to be hoping he can maybe get a little more going this time, get that draw engine going, and we'll see if he's able to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking about storylines here, you mentioned before the start, there's a bounty, something about a bounty going on here. Can you tell me about that?
Let me not forget. Thank you for reminding me, Liam. So actually, there is a bounty. So every round, the way we're doing this, we have 2 dedicated bounties in the room, which would be Hector and Ghosty, which are very successful players in the room. And then we have like random bounties every round rather, that we pick people from the staff. And Kylie is actually the bounty for this round. So if Mike's able to, he already got game 1, so he's already guaranteed a trove. If he goes 2-1, he gets a trove. Actually, sorry, he's not guaranteed it yet. He'd have to win. But if he did win with a loss, he'd get a trove. If he 2-0s Kylie here, he gets a booster box of Azurite Sea, which is, nice little bonus to your day, right? I would say a booster box, not too shabby, right?
I mean, if you leave a tournament, if you pay for a tournament and you leave with a booster box, I'd say that's a good day.
Yeah, that's a great day. So definitely some incentive here, and it's fun because you never know which round who the bounty is going to be, and it keeps it fun for everybody. Finding out, oh my god, I'm playing against somebody that might potentially give me a trove or might give me a box. So and we see some comments here. Blue Steel's a hard matchup once Manor comes out. Emerald Steel doesn't have too many strong characters besides Pete. Absolutely. A little bit what we talked about. All the characters in the deck tend to have 1 or 2 power. Minus Pete. Pete is definitely one of the more appropriate answers to this Manor, but unfortunately, there's not a lot of them.
No.
So it's going to be difficult to see, and we don't have something like Hideaway or Cusco that can just pick up that Manor off the table. So we're going to have to see if Kylie's able to operate around it there.
Yeah, you could be running. And then we see a bell into the Inkwell for the Popsicle. And then another bell. I was going to be like, the reason you ink a bell is if you have another bell.
The illustrious bell pop bell combo. Yes, absolutely. So putting a 3/3 in play on turn 1, obviously incredibly powerful. And, able to also sing 3-cost songs. So I think that's okay. Kylie, good check for Kylie. He knows how this goes. And he does take away the Storm Rage on, so that Bell's not able to sing. Because in my opinion, that's probably her strongest part. Like, she is a 3/3, which is quite ridiculous, but being able to sing those songs, I think, is what really enables her and her power for sure.
Huge. And I will say, I mean, this does completely change the game plan too for Kylie. I mean, normally, you want to develop that Diablo in turn 1, but oftentimes against this matchup with Bell now, it's the same way as when Cinderella was around in Steel Song. Like, you just don't present that turn 1 target. So it's very possible that Kylie had it and either altered it away or just chose not to present that threat, and rewarded for it here, able to pick that song without Bell singing it, drawing Mike another card.
For sure. Yeah, we definitely don't want to give value to that Storm, and a lot of players opting to either skip their turn 1 or play a turn 1 that has 4 toughness or something that's able to withstand Storm Rage on. But we do see the Magic Broom, which is actually a really interesting inclusion here because it is able to check that Diablo. It is a 2/3 that does gain evasive on your turn. So if that Diablo does decide to do what Diablos do, that room is going to be a problem for him. So a very interesting inclusion there from Mike.
What a fascinating meta call here.
Absolutely.
Because I think the conventional wisdom is you're not expecting to see a ton of green steel. Even the purple steel, the amethyst, the amethyst emerald discard decks, there's just not a ton of them around right now. So in a world of sapphire steel and ruby sapphire, to include that card and then to have it pay off potentially right here is really fascinating.
Yep, definitely a nod, I think, too. I mean, obviously it doubles as a green steel threat, but we have seen a little bit of rise, not so much at this event, surprisingly, but I know the emerald amethyst discard bird deck has been growing and looming in its presence. So maybe he just did a little check there, said, hey, just in case I run into some Diablos today, let me include this as a 2-drop. And honestly, besides me, there aren't a great amount of blue steel 2-drops. I was playing the deck for a while as well, and when you really look at them, it's quite limited, to be honest. So I think that the Broom is still a decent threat.
Doesn't bump anything.
Yeah, it's really. A 2/3. It survives a lot of little chip damage, and it occasionally stops a Diablo from questing, which is amazing.
Yeah, so fascinating here. I mean, it didn't matter anyway. We did draw into another Storm, but still,
yeah, it's a nice backup.
I love seeing meta calls that are not necessarily popular, and then seeing them pay off in real time.
Absolutely. What's unique about this game is, there's games that have sideboards where you have to play, you're able to bring in these tech cards, after game 1 or after game 2. But in this game, you're forced to kind of find ways to, input your tech cards into your build, which is really interesting. It doesn't give you an option of, seeing what you're going to play before you're bringing in these tech cards. So sometimes it's a balance of whether or not you're going to bring in certain cards if they take away too much from your strategy. But in this scenario, obviously, Mike just being able to, use it as a great threat, and fits right into the deck in my opinion. So
Right.
yeah, and
I mean,
Hiram drawing cards, so that's never
right.
good.
I was gonna say, I mean, if there's two keys to victory for Mike this game, it's establishing the bell on turn 1 and then establishing the Flavisham on turn 4. And we're seeing its game plan in action here. And just for good measure, an evasive broom to check Diablo. So
and we got a hit, which is great. So
we
we're gonna
do,
get to
but
draw
look at
two.
those manners.
Oh, I know.
Oh my
the,
goodness.
And the McDucks.
And the McDucks. I mean, this is just, that's one of those hands that you see and you're like, oh my goodness. The writing's on the wall a little bit about what the next few turns are going to be. Just so much willpower stacked up on the board for you to deal with.
Absolutely. I remember the first set champs that I played in for Rockstar Stitch. I was one match away from getting in, and I played an Ursula. Look at my opponent's hand, and he shows me triple Cogsworth, and I was like, literally unbeatable hand.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, you just instantly feel the defeat, even though you're on turn 2. So I'm sure Kylie definitely not happy with what he's looking at there.
Now, if there's one thing that's going to get you back in, though, it's trying to apply hand pressure. There's no items there, so Flavisham, unless you draw into it, is not going to be able to keep eating things.
Sure.
So the one way Kylie's going to get back into it is by, I think, going wide a little bit, drawing into some answers. And when you have 2 Prince Johns on the board, a Hypnotize or a Sudden Chill becomes
draw.
Great.
Just draw a bunch of cards, which is always good. And I think we just need to get into the deck a little further, find ourselves a Pete that we could start maybe getting some value out of him, as we see Hiram just getting to sing a Zeus, which is
an Ursula.
just calling down a thunderbolt here as he and then we get to get some more lore in, and we do add that Scrooge to the board. Interesting that he chose to ink the Manor last turn. I guess maybe he's just kind of stuck on ink since he has another Scrooge in play with Manor. But yeah, he does still have that Manor in place, or rather in his hands, so that's going to be trouble.
Well, so that's a good point. I mean, he probably wants to keep those Manors, but drew into the Zeus. We know he didn't have it, which is uninkable. And so now you're sitting with the 2 Scrooges, the Manors. If you want to continue to develop, you have to drop a Manor in there.
Sure.
And forced to get rid of some of these cards I think that you'd like to play. But certainly some of the end game cards, some of the top end cards in this deck, including the Tamatoas, both of them, if you're running them, require you to keep building that inkwell.
For sure. Yeah, I played a little bit of this kind of deck, and sometimes I'll kind of sit around at 4, since a lot of the deck does operate at 4 minus Sans Tamatoa, so sometimes I'll choose to maybe skip ink for the turn and just try to stick around that 4. But Mike here deciding that just in case he does hit that Tamatoa, he wants to make sure that he's an appropriate ink count. So just pushing it up, and I think that's a good decision. I mean, he still has another Manor in hand, potential Scrooge coming up, and he does have a Scrooge he was able to develop. So just a lot of threats right now for Kylie, as he sits at 0 lore still, but does develop a Beast who has been kind of seeing a little bit of a comeback. I've been noticing. I think without Medusa in the meta as much, no more red purple, I think Beast is something that is kind of been making a return. I think he's an incredibly strong card. Obviously, for a long time, he was a staple
card.
He was like incredibly powerful.
I hate him so much.
Yeah, he was like really, really good. So obviously, there's a lot more songs that can deal damage to him and kind of turn off his effect. However, he doesn't just get clean sweep by a Sisu, which is nice. So he does present a threat that can potentially draw you cards without being able to be dealt with. So yeah, I think it's really interesting to see him making his way back into these lists.
Well, and I like him too, because he's typically used for card draw. That's where you usually like to use him. But as somebody pointed out earlier, these green steel decks don't have a lot of high strength characters in them.
Absolutely.
And so even if he gets shut down and you get a little bit of damage on him, now he's a great engine to wreck some baby Tamatoas or Flavisham or Manors.
He's a great threat for a Manor.
He is fantastic at destroying Manors. I've seen the film.
Yeah,
the West Wing is the indication.
That is funny.
But here Mike going a bit wide, dropping a couple characters on the board, and now just a lot of threats there, a lot to deal with.
Famous quote from a different card game is "Math is for blockers." So we're just going to turn sideways and let Kylie figure out the rest. Kylie definitely has his hands full here. Just so many threats, right? We have Smee and Scrooge just waiting in the wings here. 2 lore each. So even if he does manage to deal with a majority of the board, there's still four lore coming 100% next turn most likely. So it's going to be tough. I see a Cove in Kylie's hand. I didn't see if there was any songs that he'd be able to maybe sing and get himself a little further out of the situation, but it's going to be a tough one for sure.
Yeah, I will say, one of the things that find interesting here, if I'm looking at it right, and I don't see a hand set down, I don't see a hand on the cam. Mike may have put himself here in a top deck mode, which is actually exactly where you want to be in this scenario when you have 2 Prince Johns sitting on the board. So that decision a couple turns ago to ink the manor and probably ink another manor, which I may have missed, is fantastic. Because let's say Kylie draws into a sudden chill here, sings it with Ursula. That's 2 more cards that gives him options, whatever those options are. And so smartly, Mike making sure that there's no fodder for those Prince Johns.
Sure. Yeah, and this is one of the weaknesses of the Emerald Steel deck, in my opinion. You know, you're able to clean your opponent's hand out, but if they're able to develop a big board before you're able to rip away their resources, it can be quite problematic dealing with the board, right? So now, as you mentioned, you know, Mike doesn't have any cards in his hand, but still clearly in an incredible position here to close out this game. So it's going to be quite the task for Kylie to, you know, maneuver this and get this board cleaned up. And pretty much anything that Mike draws off the top is live now, right? We got the 6 ink. We could draw Tamatoa. We could draw a manor again. We could draw a million things that are still going to put a decent amount of pressure on Kylie here. So, yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle, I think. And I do see Bruno in his. Oh, is it Bruno or is that another Diablo?
I think it's 2 Diablos.
2 Diablos.
And a Prince John, just not anything you really need. That's unfortunately.
Tough. Yeah, that is tough. All uninkable, and none of them are going to really help in the predicament here. I mean, John, not the best at combat here. I mean, he could try to throw some punches here at this Hiram, but I just don't see a way for him to really do much else here, unfortunately. So
yeah, it's just a tough string of draws. I mean, if we remember back, I mean, I think a very good opening hand usually if the bell's not in play, but the bell coming down and then drawing into another storm didn't let him establish the Diablo, and then in the mid game here drawing into 3 Prince Johns. The beast is nice. It's nice to develop, but even then it takes a turn to develop him on the board and actually get some benefit from him. So just not. And then of course the Prince Johns without any discards. So just Kylie hitting a string of cards that are doing him, you know, no good here in the mid game
for sure.
And a rough spot to be sure.
Yeah, Kylie's doing one of those things that I know I even do sometimes, where you know it's you know the writing's on the wall almost, and you're just staring at your hand and just hoping maybe they'll change. Like maybe if I riffle them enough, there'll be a new card that I can use. But unfortunately, I don't think any of these cards are gonna dig Kylie out of this position here. But Kylie's just thinking it through, making sure he's not gonna miss anything. You know, playing to his outs, seeing if there's any way that he can do something here, as he chooses to do some combat here and just try to clean up as much as he can. Does get rid of that 1 Scrooge, so there's only 1 more Scrooge. But unfortunately, he did have to give up a lot of his board here. We did manage to get the beast into the cove, so he will stick around, but with 1 HP is going to be kind of tough. And
that will buy another turn.
Yeah, I definitely will. But we may not have another turn. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in play. That's going to put him up to 18, which is quite close. All right, John jumping into the cove as well. And maybe just thinking about developing a Diablo or another John here, which again, you know,
probably your only options.
Yeah. I mean, it's
unfortunately you have to.
Oof, that never feels good. Oh, you just blew up your dude.
Yeah.
Oops. All right.
But choosing to develop the Diablo over preserving Prince John, which is probably
I mean, what are we gonna do?
Call.
Yeah, we have to get the evasive guy off the table so that, you know, at least this Diablo can stick. And yeah, it's not going to be very many more turns here if we're not able to get to something quick. Oof, what did we say?
Off the top deck, pulling back the item. Oh, look at that go! Oh, God!
Oh God!
That feels bad. There's the Fortisphere coming down, playing the Popsicle. We're going to see the engine go, drawing a card here. Then Hiram Flavisham probably going to quest, eat the Popsicle, draw 2 cards. There it is. I mean, if you're asking for a top deck, I mean that's the one you need.
That's a big one. I mean, Popsicle would have been nice, but Tamato will do a extra.
I'll do you one better. I'll do you one better.
That's probably the best possible draw you can see, especially when you're sitting there with the appropriate amount of ink to just go ahead and play it right off the top. So heads up for inking that manner. He definitely is rewarded for sure, having enough ink here to just slam this crab into play. And now, if you thought you were in trouble before, let me introduce you to some more trouble. Just the lone Diablo here, and Kylie
probably a little crabby to see that.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, he's definitely feeling under the weather, but he's a little under the sea at the moment.
And let's
see if Kylie's able to do something here. I think that's a Pete that he drew here, but Pete's not gonna do it, my friend, unfortunately.
Yeah.
There we go. Fist bumps around and scoops up a box for himself, Mr. Mike. He does get a nice booster box.
What a nice mid tournament treat there.
Absolutely.
Throw that in your backpack. And
I have a funny feeling we'll be seeing Mike later as well. So I'm sure he'll scoop up some more prizes throughout the day. But worst case scenario, it's always nice to walk away with a little something. So booster box. Hope you enjoy that, Mike. Hope you open some good Enchanted or something in there. But congratulations to Mike. And shout out to Kylie for, putting up a good fight here. Unfortunately, draws didn't quite go his way, as we noticed. It was a little bit of an uphill battle the whole round. He wasn't really able to get his shift lines going. The illustrious shift into Diablo, then sing a song, then draw the cards and do. He didn't really do the thing. And that's the way it goes sometimes. Even the Amber Steel decks that are the Steel Song that are so popular for just whole new world and doing the whole thing. Sometimes you just don't draw the pieces, right? Or you draw double whole new worlds, and now you're stuck. So you high risk, high reward.
Yeah, and it's a great point. And I will say, I see some people talking about, hey, this game was over when Bell was played on turn one, and but not necessarily. I think Kylie played that, I think, exactly the way you want to play that on the play into this matchup if you're respecting the Bell, and that is you take the gamble. You don't play the turn one Diablo and present that target for Let the Storm Rage on, and then on turn two
he checks it.
You take it, you pick it, and you take that Storm, and then you can develop Diablo on turn three. The two problems he had this matchup were, one, a fantastic meta call for this scenario by Mike presenting those brooms, which would have checked the Diablo after a turn anyway. But then two, he drew into another Storm Rage on. And didn't allow Kylie to develop that Diablo. So I will say Kylie played this, I think, exactly right for this first few turns. I don't necessarily think the game was over with the turn one Bell.
Right.
But yeah, just as you pointed out, never able to hit his
and just a lot of uninkables, right? His hand was John Diablo or John Diablo. Not much we can do with that, unfortunately. And Kylie just not able to find his draw engine. Meanwhile, Mike's just churning through cards with the rat. He's just going and going. So that's the way the cookie crumbles here. And I'm curious to see if we'll be able to grab some footage from the other match that's going on right now. Yeah, Stefan, can you hear us? Can you let me not play with stuff here.
Yeah. How do we look at our beautiful faces?
Yeah, let me see. Stefan, if you can hear us. I'm not sure if you can